The elderly woman folded Megan Doyle's coat as if it were something precious. Not a thrift store wool coat with a missing button and salt stains along the hem. She smoothed the sleeves under the buzzing fluorescent lights of the Queen's Laundromat, pressed her wrinkled hand over the collar, and whispered, "Lord Jesus, keep this child warm. Keep her and the little one safe tonight." Megan heard every word. She stood 3 machines away with a plastic basket balanced against her hip, one hand resting over the firm curve beneath her sweater, and for a moment she forgot how cold her feet were. She forgot the snowmelt seeping through the cracked soles of her boots. She forgot the folded pink slip in her purse, the one that said her seasonal hours at Bellamy's market had been cut, effective immediately, which was the polite way of saying there was no job waiting for her after Christmas. The woman did not know Megan's name. She did not know that Megan had counted the coins twice before feeding them into the washer. She did not know that Megan had come to the 24-hour laundromat because the radiator in her basement studio had died again, and because the landlord had made it very clear that rent was due on Friday whether or not the heat worked. She did not know that Megan had spent the last 4 nights sleeping in a hoodie and 2 pairs of socks, telling the baby inside her that things would get better while secretly wondering whether she had enough faith left to believe her own voice. The woman only knew what anyone could see if they looked long enough. A young woman, tired down to the bones. A coat too thin for December. A grocery bag with socks and towels and 2 maternity shirts. A face that kept turning toward the window every time the Q44 bus hissed by, as if waiting for someone who was never going to come. Megan set the basket on the plastic folding table. "That's my coat," she said softly. The elderly woman looked up, startled, then smiled in a way that did not apologize for praying. Her face was brown and lined and kind, with silver hair pinned beneath a knitted burgundy hat. A small gold cross lay against her sweater, almost hidden by a green scarf. "I know, honey," she said. "It fell off the chair. I didn't want it on the floor. You prayed over it." "I did." The woman patted the coat once more, as if finishing a seam. "Hope you don't mind." Megan wanted to say she did not mind. She wanted to say thank you. Instead, what came out was a brittle little laugh. "You might have better things to pray for." The woman did not flinch. "I probably do. But Jesus never complained when people brought him small things. Coats, fever, bread, tears. He seemed to take all of it." The dryers thumped behind them, warm air breathing through lint screens and loose vents. Somewhere near the front, a television mounted in a metal cage played a cooking show with the sound too low to understand. Outside, Roosevelt Avenue shone black under freezing rain, every passing headlight dragging a line of yellow across the glass. Megan drew her coat toward herself. "Thank you," she said, because it was easier than answering anything about Jesus. "You're welcome." The woman picked up a stack of faded dish towels from the table. "My name is Ruth." "Megan." Ruth's eyes flicked gently toward Megan's belly, not with curiosity, but with blessing. "How far along?" 7 months. Megan braced herself. People always ask the next question. "Where's the father? Are you excited? Is it a boy or a girl? Do you have family nearby?" Each question was a small door that opened into rooms Megan did not want strangers seeing. Ruth only said, "Christmas baby almost. End of February. If she behaves." "She," Ruth said, smiling. "A daughter." Megan nodded, and warmth rose in her chest with fear close behind it. "I think so." The text said she was almost sure. "Names?" Megan looked down at the clean clothes in the basket. "I haven't decided." That was a lie. She had decided months ago, and then undecided because names sounded too much like promises. She had thought of Grace because her mother loved that word. Grace before meals. Grace under pressure. Grace as a gift no one earned and no one could destroy. But lately the name felt too tender to say aloud, like touching a bruise. Ruth folded a towel in thirds. "Well, she already knows your voice. That's a start." Megan pressed her palm to her stomach and felt nothing. The baby had been quiet all evening, perhaps lulled by hunger, perhaps by the rhythm of the laundromat. perhaps by the strange calm that settled wherever Ruth stood. The front door opened with a metal shriek. Cold air swept across the tile, carrying the smell of exhaust and wet pavement. A man in a delivery jacket came in with a duffel bag of uniforms. Behind him, a woman in scrubs shook rain from her hair and went straight to the change machine. The laundromat was not crowded, but it was not empty either. Queens never truly emptied, not even at 11:30 on a Tuesday night in Christmas week. People came in carrying the evidence of their lives. Restaurant aprons, toddler pajamas, sheets from hospital beds, old blankets that smelled faintly of smoke, socks that had walked through snow, scarves, school uniforms, grief no one could see. Megan had come in just after 9, after walking 8 blocks because she could not justify spending a swipe on the bus. She had told herself she would wash one load, dry it enough to wear, then go home. But the laundromat was warm, and her studio was not, and the owner, a broad man named Sal who kept a baseball bat behind the counter but handed out candy canes to kids, had nodded at her like she belonged. No sleeping, he always said to everyone who looked too tired. Then, if they were quiet and respectful, he tended not to notice. Megan had chosen the chair beneath the broken clock because it was near the vent. She had taken off her coat for the first time all day and laid it beside her. She had eaten half a granola bar from her purse and saved the rest. She had watched strangers come and go. She had watched a mother kiss the top of a little boy's head while he slept on a pile of coats. She had watched 2 teenagers laugh over a phone, their laundry forgotten until the washer began to beep. She had watched Ruth enter with a wheeled cart and a thermos, greeting Sal by name and asking about his wife's knee. By 10:30, Megan's eyes had begun to burn. She had not meant to fall asleep. She had only meant to rest her head against the wall for a second. Then she had woken to Ruth folding her coat and praying. Now Ruth moved with deliberate care, matching socks, smoothing pillowcases, humming under her breath. The tune was old and familiar, though Megan could not place it at first. Then the words came back from childhood, from a church with red carpet and wooden pews in Albany, where her mother had sung softly while Megan traced circles in the condensation on the window. Silent night, holy night. Ruth hummed only the melody, and it threaded through the laundromat without demanding anything from anyone. Megan turned toward her own clothes. 2 pairs of maternity jeans, one with the elastic panel stretched thin. 3 shirts, a towel, a blanket she had bought from a street vendor in Jackson Heights because it was blue with yellow stars and she had imagined wrapping the baby in it. There were also the diner uniforms from the job she no longer had. Black pants and white shirts that smelled like coffee no matter how many times she washed them. She had put them in the load because she had not known what else to do with them. Her phone buzzed on the table. She knew before looking that it was her landlord. Mr. Grady never texted after 10 unless he wanted money. Rent Friday. No exceptions. I have people asking about the unit. Megan stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then another message appeared. Also, plumber can come after New Year. Space heater is your responsibility until then. She turned the phone face down. Her throat tightened. Ruth glanced at her but said nothing. That was the mercy of some strangers. They noticed pain and did not poke it like a wound. They simply made room for it to breathe. Megan folded the baby blanket slowly. Once, twice, edges together. The blanket was not very soft, but it was bright. She imagined a tiny fist gripping the corner. She imagined February snow. She imagined leaving the hospital with no one beside her. Trying to install a car seat she did not own into a cab she could not afford. She had family, technically. An older sister in Ohio who sent articles about budgeting and messages that began with, "I'm not judging," but an aunt in Florida who prayed loudly but had not offered a place to stay. Her father lived somewhere in Pennsylvania with a second wife and a dog named Hank. He called on birthdays if he remembered. Her mother had died 3 years earlier in November, and with her had gone the one person who could make disaster feel temporary. Megan had met Colin at a friend's 4th of July barbecue in Astoria. He had been charming, generous with compliments, always ready with a story. When she told him she was pregnant, he had gone quiet in a way that frightened her more than anger. He said he needed time. Then he said maybe she was making a mistake. Then he said he was leaving for a construction job in Nevada just for a few months, and they would talk when he got settled. He had sent $300 in September and nothing after that. His last message said, "I can't be what you need me to be." Megan had read that sentence so many times it had carved a groove in her mind. Can't. Need. Me. She had stopped telling people about him. At Bellamy's Market, where she had worked the deli counter and later the register when her back began to ache, people were kind in the way busy people are kind. They asked how she felt. They let her sit between customers. The manager, Patrick, said he wished he could keep everyone after the holiday rush. But sales were down and hours were tight. He had not looked at her belly when he said it. That almost made it worse. "Do you have somewhere warm to go tonight?" Ruth asked quietly. Megan stiffened. "Yes." Ruth tied two socks together with a practiced twist. "All right. I do. I believe you." Megan hated how gently she said it. "It's just my radiator. It's not working right now." "In this weather?" "The landlord knows." Ruth's mouth became a thin line. Landlords know many things. Despite herself, Megan smiled. It was small, but it arrived. That's one way to put it. Ruth reached into her cart and took out a thermos. "Tea. I'm okay. It's peppermint. No caffeine." Megan's stomach answered before pride could. Ruth heard the small growl and pretended not to. She poured tea into the thermos cup and set it beside Megan's basket, then took out a paper napkin wrapped around 2 butter cookies shaped like stars. "I bring too much," Ruth said. "My grandson says I pack like I'm crossing the wilderness." Megan looked at the cookies. "I can pay you." Ruth laughed once, soft and surprised. "For 2 cookies? Honey, let me be rich in peace." Megan took one cookie. It broke slightly in her fingers. She ate it slowly, tasting butter and sugar and the faint flavor of almond extract. It was the best thing she had eaten all day. "Thank you," she said again. Ruth nodded. "I come here Tuesday nights. My building machines eat quarters and repent not." Megan nearly laughed with her mouth full. Ruth's eyes warmed. "There," Ruth said. "That is better." "What?" "Your face. You looked like you were carrying the whole city under your ribs." Megan swallowed. "Feels like it sometimes. The city is too heavy, even for a strong girl. I'm not strong." Ruth folded the last towel and placed it in her cart. "You're here, aren't you? That doesn't mean anything. It means you kept going until tonight. Sometimes that is strength enough for one day." Megan looked away. Kindness made her feel more breakable than cruelty. Cruelty could be resisted. Kindness slipped past the locks. Near the front, Sal was wiping down machines with a gray rag. He had the bulk and weary patience of a man who had owned a business long enough to know every version of human inconvenience. He wore a Santa hat pushed back on his head, though his expression remained permanently unamused. A small artificial tree stood on the counter beside the register, decorated with plastic ornaments and a sign that read, "Please do not put shoes in dryers. Merry Christmas." At midnight, the cooking show turned into a local news broadcast. Snow was expected by morning. Airport delays. A toy drive in Brooklyn. A church choir singing in Midtown. Megan watched without hearing. Ruth had finished folding but did not leave. She sat beside Megan with her hands around the thermos, looking at the dryers turning. "My mother used to sing that song," Megan said. "Silent Night." Megan nodded. "Every Christmas Eve. Even when she was sick." Ruth turned toward her. "She's gone. 3 years. I'm sorry." "She believed like you do." Megan did not know why she said it. Maybe because the hour was late. Maybe because the laundromat was warm. Maybe because the baby shifted just then. A slow roll beneath her palm, and grief rose with it. Not in a loud way, just steady, like she had a lamp inside. Ruth smiled faintly. "Some people do. I used to think I did." Megan picked at a loose thread on the blanket. Then things happened. Life happened. And I realized maybe I only believed because she did. Ruth considered that. When my husband died, I stopped praying for 6 months. Not because I did not believe God was there. Because I was angry that he was there and did not stop it. Megan looked at her. Ruth's eyes stayed on the dryers. People think faith means you never sit in the dark. It doesn't. Sometimes faith is sitting in the dark and saying, I don't know how to speak to you right now, but I am still here. Megan's eyes stung. She blinked hard. I'm not sure I'm still here. Ruth reached over and touched the edge of the blue blanket, not Megan's hand, leaving her room to accept or refuse comfort. He is. The words were small. No thunder followed. No light broke through the ceiling. A man sneezed near washer 12. The television flickered. A dryer door banged. Yet something about the words settled. He is. Megan had heard sermons about God's presence. She had sung hymns about it. She had seen it embroidered on pillows and printed inside Christmas cards. But in the laundromat, with warm peppermint tea in her stomach and wet socks drying in a machine she could barely afford, the words felt less like doctrine and more like someone holding a candle near the floor. Her dryer buzzed. She stood too quickly and felt a hard pull low in her back. She gripped the table. You all right? Ruth asked. Yes. Just sore. You sit. I'll get it. No, I can. Ruth was already on her feet. You can. But I can too. Megan sat. Ruth opened the dryer and began taking out clothes, shaking each one loose before placing it in the basket. The heat rose in fragrant waves of detergent and metal. Megan watched her work and thought of her mother folding laundry in their apartment kitchen. The radio playing, her hands red from dishwater. Her mother used to pray over everything. Not dramatically. She prayed while stirring soup, while searching for keys, while rubbing Vicks on Megan's chest during childhood colds. Lord, help us find what's lost. Lord, make this stretch. Lord, soften her heart. Lord, give us a safe road. Megan had once found those prayers embarrassing, then comforting, then unbearable after the cancer spread. Her mother's last weeks had been full of whispered prayers, many unanswered in the way Megan wanted them answered. After the funeral, Megan had packed the Bible from her mother's bedside into a cardboard box and left it there. Ruth placed the warm laundry in front of her. There. Thank you. You keep saying that like I'm doing something grand. To me it feels grand. Ruth's face softened. Then I accept. Megan folded. The laundromat thinned after one. The delivery man left with his uniforms. The woman in scrubs folded pale blue pants with the speed of exhaustion and disappeared into the night. Sal retreated to the back office, leaving the front bell to announce newcomers. The rain turned to wet snow, tapping softly against the windows. Megan decided she would stay until 3, then 4. Then, when the trains began to fill again and the city woke, she would go back to the studio and call 311 about the heat, though she knew the complaint might make Mr. Grady angrier. She would look for another job, though no one wanted to hire a visibly pregnant woman who needed to sit down every hour. She would call the clinic and ask about resources again. She would not cry until she was alone. Ruth read from a small paperback Bible with a cracked spine. She did not read aloud at first. She simply turned pages slowly, lips moving. After a while, perhaps forgetting Megan was watching, she whispered a line. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Megan knew the verse. John, maybe. Christmas Eve at church. Candles in paper collars. Her mother's voice beside her. The darkness has not overcome it, Ruth repeated, as if testing the words against the fluorescent hum. Megan wanted to believe that. She wanted it so badly that wanting felt like pain. At 2:15, the front door opened again. A man came in carrying a black trash bag full of laundry. He was in his late 50s or early 60s, broad-shouldered under a brown wool coat dusted with snow. His hair was gray at the temples, his face clean-shaven and tired. He wore leather gloves and nice shoes that did not belong in slush. A plaid scarf hung loose around his neck. He paused near the entrance, scanning the room with the dazed expression of someone who had forgotten why he was there. Sal came out from the back. "You washing, sir?" The man blinked. Yes. Yes, sorry." His voice had a rough edge, like he had been speaking too much or not at all. He moved to a washer near the front and emptied the bag. Shirts, jeans, towels, a child's pink hoodie with a cartoon reindeer on it. The hoodie was too small for him by decades. Megan noticed because the reindeer had one eye missing. Ruth noticed too. Megan could tell by the way her eyes rested briefly on the garment, then moved away to give him privacy. The man fed bills into the change machine. Quarters clattered into the tray. He dropped two, cursed under his breath, then apologized to no one. When he bent to pick them up, something fell from his coat pocket and slid beneath the bench by the window. Megan saw it. A brown leather wallet. The man did not. He started the washer, stood watching water pour in for almost a full minute, then grabbed his empty trash bag and went to the restroom at the back. Megan looked at the wallet. It lay half in shadow, half under the cold blue light from the window. A perfectly ordinary wallet. The kind men carried for years until the leather softened at the corners. It was not hers. It was not her business. But she saw it. Her heart began to beat faster. Ruth was still reading. Sal was in the back again. The machines hummed. Outside, snow swirled in the streetlight. Megan told herself to get up and pick it up and hand it to Sal. That was all. Simple. Anyone would do that. Then her phone lit again. Not a text this time, but a banking alert she had forgotten to turn off. Balance below $25. She stared at it. $21.13. That was what remained after coins, groceries, and the minimum payment on a clinic bill. Rent was $900. She had paid half already, late from last month. Mr. Grady would not wait. He had said people were asking about the unit. Maybe he was lying. Maybe he was not. Either way, she had no family ready with a guest room. No savings. No job. The wallet lay beneath the bench. Megan could feel its presence like heat. She looked at Ruth. The old woman turned a page slowly. Megan looked at Sal's office. The door was partly closed. The man in the restroom coughed. Megan's hand moved to her belly. "No," she whispered, though she did not know who she was speaking to. The baby shifted. Not a kick. A slow pressure. Alive. Depending on her. Asking without asking. Megan stood. She walked to the window bench. Her boots squeaked on the tile. She bent carefully, one hand on the bench for balance, and picked up the wallet. It was heavier than she expected. She should have called out, "Sir, you dropped this." She should have taken 3 steps to Sal's counter. Instead, she stood there with the wallet in her hand, while the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like insects. The restroom door opened. Panic moved faster than thought. Megan slipped the wallet into the side pocket of her coat. The man came back, rubbing his face. He did not look at her. He sat 2 chairs away from his washer and took out his phone. His hands shook slightly as he typed. Megan returned to her table, every nerve awake. Ruth looked at her once, then down at her Bible. Megan sat. The wallet seemed enormous in her pocket, a stone dragging one side of the coat. She could hear her pulse. She could hear the dryer tumbling though nothing was in it. She could hear her mother's voice, not as memory exactly, but as a sentence spoken years ago in a grocery store parking lot when Megan, at 9 years old, had found a $20 bill near the carts. Need doesn't change what belongs to someone else, Meg. But Mom, nobody will know. You'll know. God will know. And your heart will become either softer or harder by what you do next. Megan closed her eyes. Don't, she whispered. Ruth's voice came quietly beside her. You say something? No. The man's phone rang. He answered at once. Any word? A pause. No, I'm at a laundromat. I had to get out of the house. Another pause. He looked toward the window, jaw tight. I know, Claire. I called the precinct again. They said if she contacts you. His voice broke slightly. Just call me if she contacts you. Megan looked at him despite herself. He ended the call and held the phone against his forehead. The washer churned his clothes behind him. The little reindeer hoodie pressed briefly against the glass, vanished under suds, then appeared again. Ruth closed her Bible. The man stood abruptly, patted his coat pockets, then froze. He checked the left pocket, the right, inside breast pocket, pants pockets. His face changed. Fear, irritation, disbelief. He looked under the chair, around the washer, near the change machine. No, he muttered. No, no, no. Sal came out. You lose something? My wallet. The man's voice sharpened. Brown leather. I just had it. Check restroom. I did. I will. He hurried back, returned half a minute later, paler. It's not there. Sal lifted both hands. Maybe in machine? The man stared at the washer as if it might accuse him. He stopped the cycle and opened it, soaking his sleeves as he dug through wet clothes. No wallet. He slammed the door harder than necessary. Megan's mouth went dry. Ruth's eyes rested on her, not accusing. Worse, seeing. The man turned in a circle. Did anyone see it? Brown leather. I have my license, cards, cash. He pressed his hand to his mouth. A photo. I need the photo. Sal looked toward Megan and Ruth. Ladies. Ruth shook her head slowly. I did not see where it went. It was true, Megan realized. Ruth had not seen it fall. But she knew something now. Maybe not what. Enough. The man looked at Megan. Miss. The wallet burned in her pocket. No, she said. The word came out small. It vanished almost immediately under the hum of machines. But it did not vanish inside her. Inside her it kept ringing. No. The man's shoulders sagged. Please. If someone picked it up by mistake, I don't care about the cash. I need the picture in there. Megan gripped the edge of the folding table. Sal frowned. Maybe someone came and went. No one came in after me, the man said. That was not true. No one had come in. The room seemed suddenly too bright, every surface reflecting her lie. The man went to the front door and looked outside, then came back and searched again. Under machines, behind the bench, around the trash can. He was not performing. He was unraveling. His hands moved frantically, then weakly. What photo? Ruth asked softly. The man looked at her as if remembering others were human. My daughter. It's the last printed one I have of her and my wife together. Before, he stopped. Megan could not breathe normally. Ruth waited. The man swallowed. My daughter is missing. She's 21. Her name is Lily. She left home in March after a fight with me. We heard from her once in July. Then nothing. Last week someone said they saw her near here, in Queens. I've been walking around with flyers. He laughed once, without humor. I put them in diners, shelters, churches, anywhere they'll let me. Tonight I saw a girl in a red coat near the station and thought. He shook his head. It wasn't her. Sal's expression softened. I'm sorry. The man nodded but seemed not to hear. The cash was for a private room in a women's shelter if I found her. Just in case she wouldn't come home. I thought if I could at least offer. He covered his eyes with one hand. Megan's hand went to her coat pocket. Inside the wallet was cash. She knew now without opening it. Rent. Heat. A few weeks of food. Maybe more. The possibility opened before her like a door in a burning building. She could leave. The man might think someone else took it. He had cards to cancel, a home to return to, people to call. She had almost nothing. She had a baby. Wasn't she allowed to survive? But the photo. My daughter is missing. Megan thought of the baby inside her. A daughter whose face she had never seen. She thought of her mother's hands folding laundry. She thought of Colin leaving with a sentence that began with I can't. She thought of how bitterness had become a coat she wore under her coat, heavy and familiar. Ruth's prayer returned to her. Keep this child warm. Keep her and the little ones safe tonight. Safe. Could stealing make them safe? Could fear? Could one desperate act build a home worth living in? The man sat down hard in a chair, defeated. His washer resumed its cycle, water sloshing behind him. Megan stood. Her knees felt loose. Ruth did not move. Megan reached into her coat pocket and closed her fingers around the wallet. She took one step, then another. The man did not look up until she stood in front of him. "I'm sorry," she said. He lifted his face. She held out the wallet. For a second he did not understand. Then he snatched it, opened it with shaking hands and searched inside. Megan saw the cash. Several $100 bills. 20s. Maybe 800, maybe more. Enough to make her life different for a month. He pulled out a small photo and stared at it as if it were oxygen. His eyes filled. "Where was it?" he asked. Megan tried to speak. Shame rose like fever. "Under the bench." He looked from her to the bench. "You found it?" "Yes. Why didn't you say anything?" The laundromat went still around them, though the machines kept moving. Even Sal stopped wiping the counter. Megan could lie again. She could say she panicked. She could say she had just found it. She could say anything. But one lie had already made the room smaller. Another would make her heart smaller too. "Because I thought about keeping it," she said. The man stared. Megan's voice trembled. "I'm pregnant. I lost my job today. My heat's out. Rent is due Friday, and I saw the money. And for a minute I thought maybe it was—" Her throat closed. She forced the words through. "I thought maybe it was my answer." The man stood slowly. His anger, when it came, was quieter than she expected. "My daughter's picture was in there. I know. I'm sorry. You lied to me." "Yes." Ruth lowered her head. Not in shame for Megan, but in prayer. The man looked down at the wallet, then at Megan's belly, then away. "Do you know what this night has been like?" "No. No. You don't." His voice broke. "I thought I lost the last thing I had of her." Megan accepted it. She deserved his anger. Maybe she deserved worse. "I'm sorry," she said again, though the words were too small. The man's jaw tightened. "I should call the police." Megan's face went cold. Sal shifted but said nothing. Megan placed one hand on her stomach. The baby moved then, a definite kick, sharp and startling. Megan flinched. The man noticed. Something in his expression changed, not softening exactly, but cracking. Ruth stood. "Sir," she said gently. She returned it. He turned on her. "After lying?" "Yes. And that's supposed to make it fine?" "No." Ruth stepped closer. "Sin does not become fine because we stop doing it. But stopping matters. Telling the truth matters. Mercy matters too." The man let out a humorless breath. "You a minister?" "No. A grandmother." "Same thing sometimes," Sal muttered. No one laughed. The man looked at Megan again. "What's your name?" "Megan Doyle." "Megan Doyle." He repeated it like he was deciding where to put her in his understanding of the world. "I'm Thomas Whitaker." "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitaker." He sat back down, wallet in both hands. "My daughter stole from us before she left," he said. "Not a wallet. Pills from her mother after surgery. Money from my desk. Jewelry. I was so angry I told her if she wanted to live like a thief, she could do it somewhere else." His face contorted. "I thought it would scare her. I thought she'd come back by morning." Megan did not move. "She didn't," he said. "And now I walk around with flyers asking strangers to forgive what I couldn't." He looked at Ruth. "There. Is that the kind of truth you wanted?" Ruth's eyes were wet. "I wanted whatever truth might let light in." Thomas looked at the photo again. "May I see her?" Ruth asked. He hesitated, then handed her the photo. Ruth held it carefully. Megan could see two women in the picture. One middle-aged, one young, both smiling in front of a Christmas tree. The younger had dark blonde hair and a crooked grin. Her head leaned against her mother's shoulder. On the back, In blue ink, someone had written Lily and Mom, Christmas 2021. She looks kind, Ruth said. She is. Thomas swallowed. Is. I don't know how to speak about her anymore. Always is, Ruth said. Until you know otherwise, always is. He nodded once, sharply. Megan looked at the picture and felt her own fear rearrange itself. Missing daughter. Grieving father. A wallet under a bench. It was not a test from God in the cruel sense, not a trap set for her failure. It was life, broken and tangled, and in the middle of it had been a choice. She had almost chosen herself alone. She had almost stepped over another person's wound because her own hurt so badly. I can help, she said suddenly. Thomas looked up. What? With flyers. I know some places around here. I mean, not tonight maybe, but tomorrow. There's a soup kitchen near St. Anne's, a clinic on 37th, a women's drop-in center in Jackson Heights. I've seen girls at the station near 74th when it gets cold. She stopped, embarrassed by the rush of words. I don't know. Maybe you already tried. I haven't tried the clinic. I go there. For prenatal appointments. I can ask. Thomas studied her. Suspicion and hope fought in his face. Hope seemed to hurt more. Ruth handed the photo back. Perhaps the Lord brought your wallet to the one person in this room who knows where to look. Megan shook her head. I almost kept it. And then you didn't, Ruth said. Thomas looked at the wallet, then removed a folded flyer. He passed it to Megan. Missing, Lily Whitaker. Age 21. Last confirmed contact, July. Possibly in Queens or Manhattan. If seen, please call. Megan stared at the photo on the flyer. Lily was smiling less formally here, hair tucked into a knit cap, eyes bright but wary. There was a small scar through one eyebrow. Megan imagined her cold. Hungry. Too ashamed to call home. Angry enough not to. Afraid enough to hide. She might not want to be found, Thomas said. That's what the officer told me. She's an adult. Maybe she wants to be found by someone who won't drag her home, Megan said before she could stop herself. Thomas flinched. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean. No, he folded the flyer carefully. You may be right. The front door opened and snow blew in around a man carrying 2 trash bags. The ordinary world resumed without permission. Sal moved to help him with a jammed washer. Ruth began gathering her laundry. Thomas sat with his wallet and photograph. Megan stood between them, feeling as though something inside her had split open and made room for air. At 3, Ruth insisted Megan take the rest of the cookies. I can't, Megan said. You can. I have teeth enough to eat other things. Megan smiled faintly. That's not the point. No, the point is that I want to give them and you are practicing receiving. Megan took them. Thomas's laundry finished drying. He folded clumsily, distracted, putting the little pink hoodie on top. Megan watched him smooth it with one hand. Was that Lily's? She asked. He nodded. She had a daughter. Megan's heart tightened. A daughter? My granddaughter. Emma. She's 4. Thomas sat heavily. Lily took her when she left. Said my house felt like a courtroom. My wife, Claire, she wanted to go after them right away. I said Lily needed to learn. I said hard lessons make people grow. He stared at the hoodie. My wife hasn't forgiven me. Megan thought of Colin. Of hard sentences. Of pride disguised as principle. Do you have a picture of Emma? She asked. He opened his wallet again, this time carefully, and showed her a photo of a small girl with blonde curls and solemn blue eyes, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. Megan's hand went to her mouth. She's beautiful. Yes. Have you checked family shelters? Some. They won't always tell me. No, but you can leave flyers. And churches. A lot of churches run warming centers this week. With the snow, they'll open more. Thomas looked at her. How do you know? Megan shrugged. You learn where warmth is. The words sat between them. Thomas tucked the photo away. Megan, Do you really have no heat? She looked down. It's not your problem. That isn't what I asked. I have a space heater. It works if I keep it close. Ruth made a sound that might have been a prayer or disapproval. Thomas rubbed his forehead. I can give you some money. No, Megan's answer came too fast, sharp with shame. I returned the wallet. I didn't do it for a reward. I didn't say you did. No. Ruth stepped in before pride could harden the room again. There are other kinds of help besides cash. Thomas looked at Ruth, then at Megan. My sister runs a parish outreach office in Woodside. Not fancy. Food pantry, rent assistance when they can, winter coats, referrals. She knows people at shelters and clinics. If you're willing, I can call her in the morning. Megan's first instinct was refusal. Help always came with forms, judgment, pity, questions she could not answer without feeling exposed. But the baby shifted again, and the studio's dead radiator rose in her mind like a dark room waiting. What parish? She asked. St. Bridget's. My sister's name is Anne. Ruth smiled. I know, in Whitaker. She helped my neighbor get a hospital bed after surgery. Thomas looked surprised. You do? Queens is large until it isn't. Megan wrapped her arms around herself. I don't know. Thomas nodded. You don't have to decide now. But she did, in a way. Not about the parish. About whether she would keep living as though every hand extended toward her was a debt she could never repay. About whether she believed God's provision, if it existed, had to arrive as a miracle no one could question rather than as peppermint tea, a stranger's sister, a warm laundromat, and a wallet returned before it was too late. At 4, Sal made coffee in the back and offered some to Thomas. He gave Megan hot water with lemon because Ruth announced that pregnant women did not need laundromat coffee at 4 in the morning. Sal rolled his eyes but obeyed. Snow thickened outside. The avenue softened. Sirens sounded far away, muffled by weather. Inside, the laundromat glowed with unnatural brightness, the kind that made everyone look both tired and holy. Ruth prepared to leave at 4:30. Her grandson, she said, was picking her up before his early shift at LaGuardia. She put on her coat, tied her scarf, and pressed a small card into Megan's hand. On it was a phone number and the name Ruth Bennett written in careful block letters. You call if you need a ride to the clinic, Ruth said. Or if the heat becomes dangerous. Or if you simply become too sad at night. Megan looked at the card. You don't even know me. I know you enough for a phone number. I lied tonight. Ruth reached up and brushed a strand of hair from Megan's face with grandmotherly boldness. And told the truth tonight. Do not let the enemy name you by the worst minute of your evening. Megan's eyes filled before she could stop them. Ruth continued. When Jesus met people, he did not pretend their sin was nothing. But he also did not leave them lying in it. He said, rise, walk, go in peace. That is different from shame. Megan nodded, unable to speak. Ruth placed a hand lightly on Megan's belly. Little daughter, you and your mama are loved, she whispered. Whether the world has made room yet or not. The baby kicked. Ruth laughed softly. Amen then. Megan laughed through tears. It came out broken but real. After Ruth left, Thomas waited near the front window with his folded laundry. He seemed uncertain whether to stay or go. Megan sat with her coat buttoned, Ruth's card in her palm, thinking about the walk home. Dawn was still hours away. The snow would make the sidewalk slick. Her studio would be cold. Thomas cleared his throat. I'm going to drive around a few places before heading home. I can drop you off. Megan stiffened. I understand if not, he said quickly. I'm a stranger. Sal can take a picture of my license, or Ruth can vouch for me or forget I asked. He looked outside. It's bad out. Sal, who had excellent hearing when pretending not to listen, called from the counter. I know him now. If he kills you, I got his washer number. Megan stared at him. Sal shrugged. Joke. Bad joke. Sorry. Thomas actually smiled. Just a little. Megan considered. Fear said no. Pride said no. Exhaustion said yes. The baby, perhaps, said nothing but made her back ache sharply enough to decide. Okay, she said. But Sal takes a picture. Absolutely, Thomas said. Sal took a picture of Thomas's license, his plate, and Thomas holding his license beside his face, which made Thomas look like a criminal in a Christmas safety seminar. Megan almost smiled again. Thomas carried her laundry to a dark blue sedan parked under a crust of snow. He opened the passenger door and moved a stack of flyers from the seat. The car smelled like coffee, paper, and pine air freshener. A rosary hung from the mirror, its beads swinging as he started the engine. "Where to?" he asked. Megan gave the address reluctantly. He knew the area. "Basement unit?" "Yes." He did not comment. The drive through Queens at dawn in snowfall felt unreal. Bodegas glowed. Delivery trucks growled through slush. A man in a Santa hat shoveled in front of a bakery before sunrise. Christmas lights blinked from apartment windows, stubborn and cheerful against the gray. Megan held her basket on her lap and watched the city pass like a long, restless prayer. Thomas kept both hands on the wheel. "My daughter loved Christmas lights," he said after a while. "When she was little, we'd drive around neighborhoods and she'd rate them. 10 for inflatable snowmen. Negative points for blue lights because she said they looked cold." Megan smiled faintly. "Harsh." She was very strict. His voice warmed. "At 5, she told a man his reindeer placement lacked emotional commitment." Megan laughed, surprising herself. Thomas smiled too, then grew quiet. "I was easier to be around when she was little. Most people are." He glanced at her. "You have someone? For the baby?" Megan looked out the window. "I have me. I'm sorry. People keep saying that. Does it help?" "Not usually." He nodded. "Then I won't say it again." After a few blocks, Megan said, "Her father left. He didn't want this. Or me with this. I don't know." Thomas's jaw tightened, but he said nothing harsh. That was wise. Megan did not need another man's anger on her behalf. She needed the truth to sit without being turned into a weapon. "My mother died," she continued. "She would have known what to do." "What was her name?" "Eileen. A good name. She prayed over everything." Megan looked down at Ruth's card. "I used to think that meant nothing bad would happen. Then bad things happened anyway, and I thought maybe prayer was just words people use when they can't fix anything." Thomas drove slowly through a yellow light. "Maybe it is words people use when they know they can't fix everything alone." Megan turned toward him. He gave a tired shrug. "My wife says I pray like I'm giving God instructions. Lily said I apologized like I was negotiating a contract. They were both right. Have you prayed for Lily?" "Every night." His voice grew rough. "Mostly badly. Bad prayers count." "I hope so." Megan looked out at the snow. "Me too." When they reached her building, Thomas parked by the curb and insisted on carrying the basket to the basement door. The building was a narrow brick row house divided into too many apartments. The front steps were salted unevenly. A plastic wreath hung crooked on the door upstairs, its red bow faded from weather. Megan led him down the side steps to the basement entrance. The lock stuck. It always did in the cold. She jiggled the key until the door opened into darkness and the stale chill of a room without heat. Thomas stood at the threshold and felt the air. "Megan, I know. This is not okay. I know." The studio was small enough that the bed, kitchenette, and table seemed to be having an argument. A space heater stood near the mattress, unplugged because Megan feared leaving it on while she was out. The walls held the damp smell of old plaster. On the table sat a jar of peanut butter, 2 apples, prenatal vitamins, and a stack of unopened envelopes. A cardboard box in the corner contained baby things gathered from stoops, thrift stores, and 1 church giveaway. 3 onesies, a chipped lamp shaped like a moon, a packet of diapers too small already perhaps, and her mother's Bible, still packed beneath a sweater. Thomas set the basket down. He did not step farther inside. That restraint mattered. I'm calling my sister at 7, he said. Megan hugged the coat around herself. Okay. And I'm calling 311 about the heat. Mr. Grady will be furious. Let him be warm and furious in his own apartment. Megan smiled despite everything. Thomas looked at the room again, and anger moved across his face. Not at her, she understood, but at the fact of it. I can bring a safe heater. One with shutoff. We have an extra. No. I mean, maybe. She was too tired to wrestle pride. Thank you. He handed her one of Lily's flyers. If you think of anywhere, I will. At the door he paused. Megan, when you gave the wallet back, I was angry. I still am, a little. But I keep thinking. He looked down. If Lily has done things she's ashamed of, I pray someone gives her the chance you took. To turn around before shame swallows her. Megan held the flyer with both hands. I hope she gets that chance. So do I. He left footprints in the snow on the steps. Megan locked the door and stood in the cold room, listening to his car pull away. The silence after was immense. For a moment the laundromat felt like a dream she had stepped out of. Ruth's prayer, the wallet, Thomas's face. All of it could dissolve under the practical cruelty of mourning. Then the baby kicked again, strong and unmistakable. Megan laughed softly. I know, she whispered. We're not done. She plugged in the space heater and sat near it wrapped in the blue blanket. She ate Ruth's second cookie slowly. Then, because exhaustion had loosened something stubborn in her, she pulled the cardboard box from the corner and opened it. Her mother's Bible lay under a green sweater, the leather cover worn pale at the edges. Megan lifted it out. A folded paper fell from inside. She knew the handwriting immediately. Meg, if you ever find this when I'm gone, don't be angry that I tucked notes everywhere. A mother has to plant seeds in advance. You may not need this now. You may not need it for years. But if you are tired and scared, read Psalm 34. Especially the line I underlined. Love, Mom. Megan sat very still. She opened to Psalm 34. Her mother had underlined several verses because of course she had. One line was marked with a small star in the margin. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Megan read it once. Then again. She did not feel saved in any dramatic way. The radiator did not clank alive. Money did not appear. Colin did not knock on the door transformed by remorse. But the room felt less empty. Close. Not distant. Not waiting behind perfect behavior. Not disgusted by her worst minute under laundromat lights. Close to the broken-hearted. Megan bent over the Bible and cried. She cried for her mother. For the job. For the cold. For the baby. For the wallet in her pocket that had not become stolen money. For Lily and Emma somewhere in the city. For Thomas and Claire in their house full of absence. For the way she had almost mistaken desperation for permission. For the way mercy had met her before shame could finish speaking. When the tears passed, she slept for 2 hours sitting up beside the heater. Her phone woke her at 8:30. An unknown number. She answered with a hoarse hello. Megan? This is Ann Whitaker from St. Bridget's. My brother Thomas gave me your number. Is now all right? Megan sat up. The room was still cold, though the heater had made a small circle of warmth. Yes. Anne's voice was brisk but gentle. The voice of someone who had spent years helping people navigate systems designed to exhaust them. She asked practical questions without making them feel like accusations. Due date. Income. Rent amount. Heat status. Food. Insurance. Doctor. Safety. Did Megan have contractions? Bleeding? Dizziness? Did she have somewhere else to stay if the apartment remained cold? Megan answered as honestly as she could. And did not gasp. She did not scold. She said, all right. First, you need heat. I'm going to give you 2 numbers and also make a call. Second, we have food pantry hours today until noon. Third, there is emergency assistance paperwork. It may not be fast, but we start. Fourth, I have a woman in the parish who donated a bassinet last week. If you can use it, it's yours. Megan covered her eyes and paused. Are you there? Yes. Sorry. No apology needed. Do you have a way to get here? Megan looked at the snow beyond the small window near the ceiling. I can take the bus. No. Thomas said he can drive you at 10 if you're comfortable. If not, I can send someone else. Ruth Bennett offered too, apparently. She called me before 7. Ruth called you? With a list, and said, and Megan could hear the smile. Ruth never merely calls. Megan laughed, though tears came again, and softened. Megan, nothing is solved in one morning. But you are not carrying this alone today. Can today be enough for now? Megan looked at her mother's Bible open on the bed. Yes, she whispered. Today can be enough. Thomas arrived at 10 with the safe heater, 2 bags of groceries from Ruth, and a sheepish expression. My sister told me not to overwhelm you, he said, holding up the bags. Ruth told me to ignore my sister. Megan took 1 bag. That sounds like Ruth. He installed the heater without wandering through her space, checked the outlet, and left the receipt and manual on the table. This shuts off if it tips. Keep fabric away. Don't use an extension cord. Okay. He noticed the open Bible but did not comment. On the drive to St. Bridget's, Megan held Lily's flyer in her lap. I thought of a place, she said. There's a church basement on 82nd that serves dinner Wednesdays. I went once last month when I was short. They didn't ask many questions. A woman there said they get young mothers sometimes. Thomas gripped the wheel. Can we go after St. Bridget's? Yes. At the parish outreach office, Megan expected something dim and sorrowful. Instead, she found a small room that smelled of coffee, old wood, and canned soup, with winter coats hanging along one wall and a paper Advent wreath taped to a filing cabinet. A crucifix hung above a desk cluttered with forms. Beneath it, someone had placed a sticky note that read, Be kind. Everyone is carrying something. And Whitaker looked like Thomas around the eyes, but where he seemed worn thin by worry, and had the steady energy of a woman fueled by purpose and black coffee. She wore a navy cardigan, reading glasses on a chain, and small silver hoop earrings. She hugged Thomas first, then turned to Megan. No hugs unless wanted, and said. Megan almost cried at the option. Maybe later. Fair. Forms began. Calls began. Megan sat with a pen while and explained each paper. Emergency rental assistance. Tenant heat complaint. WIC. SNAP. A list of prenatal support programs. A number for a legal clinic. Megan had known some of these existed, but knowing in the abstract was different from having someone sit beside her and say, sign here, write your landlord's name there. No, this question does not mean what you think it means. At 11, a volunteer named Marjorie brought Megan a sandwich and a cup of soup. Eat, she said, with the authority of every church basement woman in history. Megan ate. Thomas made calls about Lily from the hallway. Megan could hear him asking if he could leave flyers. His voice remained polite even when people refused to share information. Once she heard him say, No, I understand. Just please, if she comes in, tell her her father is not angry. Tell her he wants to know she's safe. His voice broke on safe, and paused in her paperwork. Megan looked up. He used to be the strongest man I knew, and said quietly, not gentle enough, but strong. This has undone him. Maybe being undone is not the opposite of being strong, Megan said, and looked at her, surprised, then smiled. You've been talking to Ruth. A little. That'll do it. By noon, Megan had a box of pantry groceries, a voucher for a winter coat that actually closed over her belly, an appointment at a tenant clinic, and 3 phone numbers written on a yellow legal pad. Nothing magical. Everything practical. Ordinary hands. As they were leaving, Anne stopped her by the coats. Thomas told me what happened with the wallet. Megan flushed. I'm not proud of it. No, I imagine not. Megan waited for the rest, and took a red scarf from a donation bin, examined it, and folded it. I'm glad he told me the whole thing, not just the return. The almost. People love stories where someone does right easily. But most of us need mercy because doing right is sometimes a fight. Megan swallowed and handed her the scarf. Take this too. It suits you. I don't know how to repay everyone. You don't repay grace. You receive it, and when your hands are stronger, you pass it on. Megan thought of the baby. Grace, she said under her breath, and tilted her head. What was that? Maybe her name. Anne's smile spread slowly. That is a beautiful maybe. That afternoon, Megan and Thomas drove through snow-softened Queens with Lily's flyers. At the clinic, Megan left one with a receptionist who promised nothing but took it kindly. At the church basement on 82nd, a man named Father Paul looked at the flyer and grew solemn. I haven't seen her, he said, but I'll ask our volunteers. We have dinner tonight. You're welcome to come back. Thomas gave him 3 flyers. If she comes, please tell her. He stopped. Father Paul waited. Tell her dad is sorry, Thomas said. Tell her mom is waiting. Tell her Emma's room is still yellow. Father Paul nodded as if receiving something sacred. I will. They stopped at 2 diners, a shelter intake office that would not confirm anything, a library, a pharmacy, and a community center where children were making paper snowflakes. Each place was ordinary, fluorescent, human. Each person took the flyer with varying degrees of attention. Hope rose and fell so often that Megan felt seasick from it. At 4, Thomas bought her a bagel despite her protests. You returned almost $900, he said. Let me buy a bagel. Fine. They sat in the car eating while snow gathered on the windshield. Megan's phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Grady. I got a call from City. You complained? Not smart. Fear tightened her stomach. Another message followed. Plumber coming tomorrow morning. Be there. Megan stared at it, hardly believing. The heat, she said. Thomas leaned over. He's sending someone? Tomorrow. Good. He's angry. He can join the club. Megan laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Thomas handed her a napkin from the glove compartment and pretended not to be alarmed by pregnancy emotions. At 5 and called Thomas. Megan heard only his side. What? Where? His entire body changed. Are you sure? No, I'm listening. He fumbled for a pen. Say it again. Megan sat frozen. Thomas ended the call and looked at her. His face had gone pale. A volunteer from St. Bridget's saw someone who might be Lily 2 days ago, he said. At a motel near the expressway. With a little girl. Megan's breath caught. Emma? Maybe. His hands shook so badly he had to put them on the steering wheel. And says not to rush in. She's calling a social worker she knows. They don't want to scare her. Okay. I want to go now. I know. I should go now. Megan thought of what she had said earlier. Maybe she wants to be found by someone who won't drag her home. Thomas, she said gently. If it's her, what will you say first? He looked at her, desperate. I don't know. Not where have you been? Not how could you? Not come home right now. He closed his eyes. Say you're sorry, Megan said. Say she's loved. Say you can help without controlling her. Say Emma is beautiful. Say you'll sit outside in the snow as long as she needs, but you won't leave without telling her she matters. Thomas covered his mouth. Tears slid down his face. Megan looked away to give him privacy, though there was nowhere for privacy in a parked car. When he could speak, he said, Will you come? What? If it's not too much. I don't know why, but she might listen to you. Or maybe I just need someone there who still remembers what it feels like to be on the other side of a locked door. Megan's first thought was no. This was not her family, not her responsibility. She was tired, pregnant, emotionally wrung out. But then she remembered the wallet under the bench and Ruth's voice saying perhaps the Lord brought your wallet to the one person in this room who knows where to look. I'll come, she said. They met and a social worker named Denise outside the motel. It was the kind of place that advertised weekly rates and free cable on a sign with 2 dead bulbs. Snow collected in gray ridges along the parking lot. The office window glowed behind faded Christmas decals. Denise was calm and direct. "We do not know if it's her. If it is, she is an adult. We cannot force contact. We can offer resources. We can make sure the child is safe. Mr. Whitaker, you will not raise your voice. I won't. You will not block the door. I won't. You will not demand." Thomas nodded, humbled. "I won't." Megan stood near and, clutching the flyer. Her back ached. The baby pressed against her ribs as if listening. The motel manager, a thin man with tired eyes, confirmed that a woman matching Lily's description had checked in under a different name with a little girl. Room 18. Paid cash through tomorrow. Thomas made a sound like a prayer. Denise knocked first. No answer. She knocked again. "Lily? My name is Denise. I'm not police. I'm here with someone from St. Bridget's. We want to make sure you and your child are all right." Silence. Then movement. A shadow crossed the curtain. Thomas stepped forward, but placed a hand on his arm. A voice came through the door, thin and hard. "Go away." Thomas's face collapsed. "Lily," he whispered. Behind the door, silence. Then louder, "Dad." He moved closer but kept distance. "Yes, it's me. You need to leave. I will if you want. But I need to say something first." "No, you don't get to." "I'm sorry," he said, the words breaking open. "Lily, I'm so sorry." The parking lot seemed to hold its breath. "I was wrong," Thomas continued. "I was angry and scared, and I made our house feel like a place where you had to defend yourself instead of come home. I said things no father should say. I have been looking for you because I love you, not because I want to punish you. Your mother loves you. Emma's room is still yellow. If you never come home, I will still help you. If you hate me, I will still help you. I just need to know you're safe." There was a sound from inside. A sob quickly covered. A child's voice asked, "Mommy?" Megan's eyes filled. Denise spoke gently. "Lily, can you open the door a little? We have food, diapers if you need them, and information. No one is taking you anywhere tonight." A long pause. The chain lock slid, then stopped. The door opened 3 inches. One eye appeared, then half a face. Lily was thinner than her photos. Her hair was tangled under a hood. The scar through her eyebrow was real. She looked at Thomas with a mixture of longing and terror so raw that Megan had to look down. "Who's she?" Lily asked, seeing Megan. Megan stepped forward slightly. "My name is Megan. I was at a laundromat last night. I found your dad's wallet." Lily's eyes narrowed. "I almost kept it," Megan said. Thomas turned toward her, startled, but did not interrupt. Megan continued, "I was desperate, pregnant, broke, angry. I thought nobody cared what happened to me, so maybe I didn't have to care what happened to anyone else. But your picture was in there. Yours and your mom's. And then he talked about you." Her voice trembled. "I gave it back. Not because I'm good. Because I didn't want fear to decide who I became." Lily stared at her. "I don't know what happened," Megan said. "And I'm not here to tell you what to do. But if shame is keeping you behind that door, I just wanted to say it lies. It tells you the worst thing you did is your name forever. I'm trying not to believe that today." The door opened another inch. A little girl peeked from behind Lily's leg, clutching a stuffed rabbit by one ear. Thomas made a broken sound. "Emma." Lily's eyes filled with panic. "Don't." He stepped back immediately. "Okay. I'm sorry. I'm right here. I won't come closer." Emma looked at him solemnly. "Are you Grandpa?" Thomas nodded, tears shining. "Yes, sweetheart. If that's all right." She ducked behind Lily again. Denise kept her voice steady. "Lily, may I talk with you? Just me at first, if you prefer." Lily looked at Thomas, then at Megan, then at Anne. She was shivering though she wore a coat indoors. "Is Mom here?" she asked. "No," Thomas said. But she can be. Or not. Whatever you need. Lily's face twisted. I stole her necklace. I know. She hates me. No, Thomas said. She sleeps with your baby blanket on her chair. She is angry and hurt and scared, but she does not hate you. Lily began to cry. Not dramatically. Quietly. As if she had learned to cry without disturbing anyone. Emma tugged her sleeve. Mommy, I'm cold. That broke whatever held Lily upright. She opened the door. The room was small and dim. A fast food bag sat on the table. Clothes were piled in a corner. The heater under the window rattled but gave little warmth. Emma wore leggings too short at the ankles and socks with no shoes. Lily looked ashamed when the adults saw the room, but Denise moved with practiced grace, not reacting as if poverty were a spectacle, and brought in food. Thomas stayed outside until Lily nodded permission. When he entered, he stood near the door, hands visible, like a man approaching a frightened animal he loved. Emma took a granola bar from Anne and ate it with fierce concentration. Lily sat on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around herself. I tried, she said. I got a job at a cafe, but Emma got sick and I missed shifts. Then I stayed with a friend, but her boyfriend was... She stopped. I didn't use again. I wanted to, but I didn't. Thomas covered his face. Thank God. Lily flinched at the emotion. Megan sat carefully in a chair by the table. That's not nothing, she said. Lily looked at her. What? Not using when you wanted to. That's not nothing. Lily's mouth trembled. It didn't feel like much. Most strong things don't feel strong when you're doing them. Lily looked at Megan's belly. You alone? Mostly. That sucks. Yes, Megan said. It does. For some reason, that made Lily laugh a little through tears. It broke the room open. Emma climbed onto the bed with her granola bar. Thomas asked if she remembered the yellow room, and Lily stiffened until he added, Only if you want to talk about it. Emma said she remembered a lamp shaped like a moon. Thomas said it was still there. Megan thought of her own chipped moon lamp in the box and felt the strange weaving of lives. Denise arranged for Lily and Emma to go that night to a family crisis shelter connected with a church program. Not back to Thomas's house unless Lily chose it later. Thomas accepted this with visible effort. He wanted to take them home. He wanted to fix months in one gesture. But he swallowed his desire and said, Whatever is safest for you. Lily looked at him then as if seeing something new. Before they left the motel, Thomas took the wallet from his coat and removed the cash. He counted out some bills and placed them on the table near Lily. She shook her head. I don't want your money. I know. He pushed it gently closer. This is not payment to come home. It's not proof I'm good. It's just money for you and Emma because you need it. Lily looked at Denise, who nodded. You can accept help and still make your own decisions. Lily took it slowly. Megan watched and thought of her own refusal, her own fear of being owned by kindness. She wondered how many people stayed cold because they could not bear the weight of gratitude. She wondered how many gifts God had tried to place in her hands that she had pushed away because they came through people instead of lightning. Thomas turned to Megan before they left. I need to take them to the shelter with Denise. And can drive you home. Of course. He hesitated. Thank you. Megan shook her head. I didn't do anything. He looked at her for a long moment. You gave me my wallet. Yes. And then you gave me words I did not have. Megan looked away, overwhelmed. Lily approached her at the door while and bundled Emma in an extra coat. Up close, she looked both older and younger than 21. Her eyes held exhaustion, suspicion, and a small, dangerous hope. Grace, Lily said. Megan blinked. What? For the baby. I heard you tell Anne. It's a good name. Megan's hand covered her belly. You think so? Lily nodded. I knew a nurse named Grace once. She was nice to me when I didn't deserve it. Megan smiled softly. Maybe that's when nice matters most. Lily looked down. Maybe. Outside, snow had stopped. The clouds were breaking in the west, revealing a thin band of pale gold over the elevated tracks. The world looked rinsed and cold and not yet ruined, and drove Megan home with the radio playing low. A choir sang O Come, Emmanuel, and Megan listened to the ache of it. Ransom captive Israel, mourning in lonely exile here. Rejoice. The song did not skip the mourning. It carried it toward rejoicing, one slow note at a time, and glanced at her. You're quiet. I'm thinking. Dangerous. Megan smiled. About how nothing is fixed exactly. No, but something changed. And nodded. That is often how God starts. Not with everything fixed. With a door opening. At home, the new heater had kept the room from freezing. It was still shabby, still small, still uncertain. But when Megan stepped inside with groceries, forms, and the red scarf around her neck, it no longer felt like a place where hope came to die. It felt like a place where something fragile could be kept alive until morning. The plumber came the next day at 9, smelling of cigarettes and peppermint gum. Mr. Grady came too, red-faced and irritated. But the presence of a city complaint number written in Anne's hand made him less bold than usual. The plumber banged pipes, muttered about neglect, replaced a valve, and by noon the radiator clanked like an old saint clearing his throat. Heat hissed into the room. Megan stood in front of it and cried again. Pregnancy, she told the plumber when he looked alarmed. He nodded as if this explained all mysteries. Christmas week unfolded not as a miracle montage, but as a series of small mercies stitched between difficulties. Megan filled out paperwork. She waited on hold. She visited St. Brigid's and carried home cans of soup, oatmeal, apples, and a soft gray coat that closed over her belly. She met Marjorie again, who gave her a bag of baby clothes washed in lavender detergent. Ruth called every evening at 7 with no agenda except to say, "Are you warm? And did you eat? And any kicks today?" Thomas texted updates about Lily and Emma with careful restraint. Lily had gone to the shelter. Emma had seen a doctor. Claire, Thomas's wife, had spoken to Lily on the phone for 7 minutes. Most of them spent crying. Colin texted on Christmas Eve. "Heard you lost job. Sorry. Hope you're okay." Megan stared at the message while sitting on her bed, the blue blanket over her knees and her mother's Bible open beside her. For months, she had imagined what she would say if he reached out. Sharp sentences, perfect accusations, words that would make him understand the size of what he had abandoned. Her thumb hovered. Ruth had told her that forgiveness was not pretending harm did not matter, and had said grace did not require allowing unsafe people to walk through every door. Thomas had shown her apology without control, and Lily had shown her that shame could make even love look threatening. Megan typed slowly, "I'm not okay in the way I wish I were, but I'm safe tonight. The baby is healthy. I won't pretend what you did didn't hurt. I'm not ready for much conversation, but I hope you find the courage to become better than the way you left." She read it twice. It was not sweet. It was not cruel. It was true. She sent it. Then she turned off the phone. At 6, Ruth picked her up for Christmas Eve service at St. Brigid's. Megan nearly refused because she had not gone to church in years and because she feared crying in public. Ruth said, "Good. Churches were built with crying in mind." So Megan went. The church was old brick with wooden doors and a nativity scene near the entrance. The air smelled of wax, pine, and damp wool. Children in dress shoes squirmed in pews. An elderly man tuned a violin. Someone's baby fussed. Someone laughed softly. The sanctuary lights were low, and candles waited unlit along the aisles. Megan sat between Ruth and Anne. Thomas sat a few rows ahead with Claire, a pale woman with tired eyes and a green coat. There was space beside them, not empty exactly, but waiting. Megan knew Lily and Emma were not ready to come. Still, Thomas had left room. The service began with a hymn. Megan did not sing at first. The words were too familiar. They opened doors inside her. But when Silent Night came, Ruth's hand found hers. Silent night, holy night. Megan heard her mother's voice so clearly that she turned her head. Of course Eileen Doyle was not there in body. Yet love had a way of echoing through rooms built for hope. Megan sang softly, then stronger, tears slipping down her face. When candles were lit, the flame passed from person to person. Ruth to Megan, Megan to Anne, and to a boy in a red sweater. The light multiplied without any candle losing its own flame. The pastor spoke briefly, not like a lecturer, but like a man telling news too good to keep polished behind glass. He spoke of a child born in a borrowed place, to a mother far from home, under the shadow of empire, welcomed first by working men who smelled of sheep. He said God did not wait for the world to become clean, calm, and ready. God came into the noise, the census, the fear, the closed doors, the straw. God came small enough to be held. Megan placed her free hand over her belly, small enough to be held. After the service, people gathered in the hall for cider and cookies. Megan stood near the wall, overwhelmed by warmth and conversation. Claire Whitaker approached her with 2 cups of cider. "You're Megan," Claire said. "Yes." Claire handed her a cup. "Thomas told me." Megan braced herself. Claire's eyes filled. "Thank you for bringing back the wallet." Megan shook her head. "I almost didn't. He told me that too." Claire took a careful breath. "I've almost done many things grief told me to do. Some I did. Some I didn't. I'm learning not to measure people by only one side of that line." Megan held the warm cup. "How is Lily?" "Scared. Angry. Alive." Claire smiled through tears. "She let me talk to Emma this morning. Emma asked if our house still has cookies shaped like bells. It does now. I baked all afternoon." "That's wonderful." "It's something," Claire said. "Not everything, but something." Megan nodded. She understood something now. Something could be holy. Claire looked at Megan's belly. "Do you have plans tomorrow?" Megan hesitated. "I was going to make soup." "With Ruth's groceries?" "Yes." Claire smiled gently. "Would you consider joining us for Christmas dinner?" "No pressure. Thomas and Ruth, maybe Lily and Emma if they feel able for an hour. Maybe not. It will be messy. Probably emotional. There will be too much food because I don't know how else to cope." Megan looked across the hall. Ruth pretended not to watch, and did not pretend. Thomas stood by the doorway holding his phone, glancing at it every few seconds like a man waiting for a star to move. "I don't want to intrude." Claire's face softened. "Dear, half the Christmas story is people making room where there didn't seem to be any." Megan laughed through sudden tears. "Okay." Christmas morning came bright and bitter cold. Heat clanged in the radiator. Megan woke under the blue blanket with one hand on the Bible and the baby pushing against her ribs as if impatient for breakfast. She made oatmeal with sliced apple. She called her sister in Ohio and, for the first time in months, did not pretend everything was fine. Her sister cried, apologized for sounding judgmental when she had been afraid, and offered to come in January. Megan did not know whether she would. But the call ended without bitterness. At noon, Ruth arrived wearing a red coat and carrying a wrapped gift. "For Grace," she announced. Megan stared. "I never officially said." "You said enough." Inside the paper was a tiny white hat with a yellow embroidered star. Megan held it to her chest. "It's perfect." Ruth looked around the studio, felt the heat, inspected the groceries, and nodded like a general approving a battlefield. "Better. Better," Megan agreed. Thomas picked them up. On the way, he said Lily might come for dessert. Maybe. Emma wanted to see the cookies. Lily was afraid. Claire was afraid. Everyone was afraid. "Maybe afraid can still come to dinner," Ruth said from the back seat. Thomas smiled. "I'll put that on a sign." The Whitaker house was in a quiet street in Woodside, narrow but well kept, with white lights around the porch and a wreath on the door. Inside, it smelled of roasted chicken, cinnamon, and furniture polish. A Christmas tree stood in the living room, decorated with ornaments that looked collected over decades. School crafts, glass angels, a tiny taxicab, a wooden sheep missing one leg. On a side table stood a framed photo of Lily and Claire, the same one from the wallet. Megan paused before it. Thomas saw. "I put the photo back in the wallet," he said. "But Claire printed another this morning. 5 copies. Maybe 10. Claire emerged from the kitchen wearing an apron dusted with flour. She hugged Ruth, kissed and on the cheek, and then looked at Megan. "Hug today?" Megan smiled. "Yes." Claire hugged her gently, careful of the baby. Megan felt the woman tremble once and then steady herself. Dinner was not perfect. Thomas overcooked the carrots because he kept checking his phone, and argued with him about whether he was hovering before Lily had even arrived. Ruth told them both to peel potatoes if they needed to wrestle. Megan sat at the kitchen table and folded napkins, feeling oddly useful. At 3, Thomas's phone rang. Everyone froze. He answered. "Lily?" His face changed. "Yes. Yes, sweetheart. Of course." He looked at Claire. "She's outside." Claire gripped the counter. Thomas went to the door slowly, as if approaching an altar. Megan watched from the hall. Lily stood on the porch holding Emma's hand. She wore the same coat but had brushed her hair. Emma clutched the stuffed rabbit and stared past Thomas at the tree. "Just dessert," Lily said quickly. "Maybe 10 minutes. Whatever you want," Thomas said. Claire appeared behind him, hand over her mouth. Lily saw her and nearly turned away, but Emma shouted, "Cookies!" and ran inside, breaking the spell. Everyone laughed and cried at once. Lily stepped in. Claire did not rush her. That may have been the bravest thing she had ever done. She stood still and said, "Hi, baby." Lily's face crumpled. "Mom." Then they were holding each other, not neatly, not healed completely, but truly. Thomas looked away, shoulders shaking. Ruth whispered something that sounded like "thank you," and wiped her eyes with a dish towel. Megan stood with one hand on her belly and felt Grace move beneath her palm. Later, Emma sat on the floor arranging cookies by shape. Lily drank tea at the table, still guarded but present. Thomas kept his distance until Emma climbed into his lap of her own accord to show him the rabbit. His face in that moment was almost too tender to watch. Lily looked at Megan. "You okay?" Megan nodded. "You?" "No," Lily smiled faintly. "But better than yesterday. That seems to be the theme." Lily touched the edge of her mug. "I keep thinking about what you said. About shame lying. I stole that from Ruth, probably. Ruth seems like someone worth stealing from." Across the room, Ruth called, "I heard that." Lily smiled, and it changed her whole face. After dinner, when twilight turned the windows blue, Megan found herself alone for a moment in the living room near the Christmas tree. She looked at the ornaments, the family photos, the stockings hung unevenly. She did not envy the house exactly. She saw now that houses could hold sorrow as well as warmth. But she felt the ache of wanting a place where Grace could grow among people who knew her name. Thomas came in carrying a small box. "Claire wanted me to give you this before you leave. From both of us." Megan opened it. Inside was a grocery gift card and an envelope. "No," she said immediately. Thomas held up a hand and helped. "It's not from the wallet. It's from the parish emergency fund and from us. 1 month's rent, paid directly to your landlord if you allow it. No cash. No strings. Also, and says there's a part-time desk job opening at the outreach office after New Year. Sitting aloud. Flexible for appointments. Not glamorous." Megan stared at him, unable to process the words. "Why?" Thomas's eyes grew wet. "Because God gave me back my daughter through ordinary hands, and I would be a fool to close mine now." Megan sat down because her knees could not be trusted. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. Thomas sat across from her, leaving space. "Neither did I." The simple truth of that filled the room more than any explanation could. Megan covered her face and wept. Not the desperate crying of the cold room. Not the bitter tears after Colin. This was different. It was relief painful enough to feel like breaking. Ruth came in and sat beside her. Claire brought tissues. Lily hovered near the doorway, then crossed the room and placed a hand on Megan's shoulder. "Receive it," Lily said softly. "Then teach me how." Megan laughed through tears. "I'm not good at it yet." "Me neither. That makes two of us." "Three," Thomas said. "Four," Claire added from the doorway. Ruth sniffed. "Amateurs, all of you." They laughed, and the laughter did not erase the wounds, but it made a sound the wounds could not silence. That night, after Thomas drove Megan home, she stood in her warm little studio under the soft light of the chipped moon lamp. The gift envelope lay on the table beside her mother's Bible. Groceries filled the shelf. The new heater rested quiet in the corner, no longer the only defense against cold. Outside, the city moved through Christmas night. Sirens, buses, footsteps, distant music from an apartment upstairs. Ordinary noise, human noise. The world still broken and beloved. Megan took out her phone and opened a blank note. "Dear Grace," she typed. Then she stopped, crying again because the name no longer felt too tender to say. It felt like a promise, yes, but not one she had to make alone. "Dear Grace," she continued, "I want to tell you about the night everything did not become easy, but became possible. You were with me in a laundromat in Queens. It was Christmas week. I was cold and scared and angry, and an old woman named Ruth folded my coat like it mattered. She prayed over us before she knew us. A man lost his wallet, and I almost let fear turn me into someone I did not want you to know. But Jesus was kind to me, not soft in a way that leaves us unchanged, kind in a way that helps us stand up, tell the truth, and walk toward the light one trembling step at a time." Megan paused. The baby moved. She smiled. "You should know this, little one. God's help does not always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it comes through a laundromat chair, peppermint tea, a stranger's sister, a city complaint number, a flyer, a cookie, a ride through snow, a father learning to apologize, a daughter brave enough to open the door, a church basement full of forms, and hands that have been empty long enough to recognize hunger in someone else. Sometimes the answer to prayer is not a thing falling from the sky. Sometimes it is the courage to return what is not yours, and the mercy waiting on the other side." She saved the note. Then she unpacked the last items from the cardboard box. Her mother's sweater went into the drawer. The baby clothes went into a neat stack. The Bible stayed on the table. Megan found a pen and wrote on the first blank page, beneath her mother's name. "For Grace, when she needs to know the light still shines." Days passed. The job at St. Brigid's became real, and trained Megan to answer phones, sort intake forms, label pantry shelves, and speak gently to people who arrived embarrassed by need. Megan learned that shame had many faces. Old men in polished shoes asking for utility help, mothers counting diapers, young fathers whispering about eviction, widows who did not understand online forms, teenagers pretending not to be hungry. She saw herself in more of them than she expected. Sometimes she recognized the look she must have worn in the laundromat. Proud because pride was the last coat left. Frightened because the world had already taken too much. Suspicious because help had often come with hooks. When she could, she offered tea. When appropriate, she said, "You're not alone today." She did not say it like a slogan. She said it like a rope. Lily entered a recovery support program connected with the shelter. Some days she answered Thomas's calls. Some days she did not. Claire learned not to send 12 messages when Lily went quiet. Thomas learned to say, "I love you," without adding instructions. Emma visited the yellow room for one afternoon in January and declared the moon lamp still acceptable. It was not a perfect reunion. It was a beginning that had to be chosen again and again. Ruth continued Tuesday laundry nights. Sometimes Megan joined her even when she had no laundry, bringing tea and sitting under the broken clock while machines turned. Sal pretended annoyance at their conversations and kept a chair near the vent unofficially reserved. One night in late January, A young man came in shaking from cold, carrying a backpack and a single blanket. He asked Sal if he could sit for a while. Sal said no sleeping, then put a cup of coffee on the counter and looked away. The young man sat near the dryers, eyes closed. Megan watched Ruth watching him. "Go on," Ruth said. "What?" Ruth nodded toward the counter. "There are cookies in my bag." Megan smiled. "You brought too many? I am crossing the wilderness." Megan took 2 cookies and walked to the young man. "Hi," she said. "I'm Megan. Do you want something to eat?" He looked up, wary. She knew that look. She respected it. She set the cookies on the chair beside him rather than forcing them into his hand. No strings. He stared at the cookies, then at her belly. "Thanks. You're welcome." She returned to Ruth, who was folding towels. "Ordinary hands," Ruth said. Megan sat, feeling Grace roll and stretch inside her as dryers hummed and snow tapped the glass. On a February morning washed pale with winter sun, Megan went into labor 3 weeks early. Ruth drove like a saint with taxi instincts, praying at red lights and scolding buses. At the hospital, and arrived with paperwork Megan did not need but felt comforted by. Claire came with a blanket. Lily sent a text that read, "You can do hard things." Thomas sent one that read, "Grace is already loved." Colin called twice. Megan did not answer until later. She had room for many things now, but not all at once. Labor was long. Pain rose like waves that did not ask permission. Megan gripped Ruth's hand and heard her mother's old prayers in her memory. "Lord, give us a safe road. Lord, make this stretch. Lord, keep this child warm." At 2:17 in the morning, Grace Eileen Doyle arrived with a furious cry, a full head of dark hair, and fists clenched as if prepared to argue with the world. Megan held her daughter against her chest and wept. "Hi, Grace," she whispered. "I'm your mom. We made it to today." Ruth stood beside the bed crying openly. "Look at her," she said. "Look what hope can weigh." Grace was 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Small enough to be held. Large enough to change everything. Weeks later, when Megan returned to the laundromat for the first time with Grace bundled against her chest, Sal hung a sign on the counter that read "Welcome Baby Grace" in crooked marker letters. Ruth claimed she had nothing to do with it, though glitter on her sleeve betrayed her. Thomas and Claire stopped by with a casserole. Lily came too, with Emma holding her hand. Lily looked healthier, though still tired. Emma wore boots with silver stars. The laundromat filled with the strange joy of people who had met under broken circumstances and somehow become part of one another's repair. Machines spun. Fluorescent lights buzzed. Someone's socks fell behind a washer. A child cried because a vending machine ate $1. Life continued, unpolished and bright. Emma peered at the baby. "She's tiny." "You were tiny once," Claire said. "No," Emma replied firmly. "I was always this big." Thomas laughed, and Lily did not pull away when he touched her shoulder lightly. Megan sat beneath the broken clock. Grace slept against her, warm and milk-drunk. One tiny hand curled near her face. Ruth placed Megan's old wool coat over the back of the chair. The missing button had been replaced with one that did not quite match. "Do you remember?" Ruth asked. Megan looked at the coat, then at the folding table, then at the bench by the window where the wallet had fallen. "Yes. Good. Good." Ruth nodded. "Some memories are altars. Not because they were painless, but because God met us there." Megan watched the dryers turn, gold light blinking across the glass. She thought of the woman she had been that night. Cold, afraid, holding a wallet that was not hers. One step from letting desperation make a decision love would mourn. She did not despise that woman now. She understood her. She grieved for her. She thanked God that someone had prayed over her coat before she knew she needed prayer. Grace stirred, opened her eyes briefly, then slept again. Megan whispered, "The light shines in the darkness." Ruth smiled. "And the darkness has not overcome it." Outside, queens rushed and shouted and lived. Buses sighed at curbs. Vendors lifted metal gates. Snow melted into dirty streams along the sidewalk. Above the laundromat, apartments glowed with small square windows, each one holding stories no passerby could guess. Inside, under buzzing fluorescent lights, Megan Doyle held her daughter and felt the warmth of many ordinary hands around them. Nothing had become perfect. Rent would come due again. Grace would cry at night. Lily would have hard days. Thomas would still have to learn patience. Claire would still wake sometimes afraid. Ruth's knees would ache. Sal's machines would break. The city would remain expensive, beautiful, indifferent, and full of hidden mercy. But Megan knew something now that she had not known when she first walked into the laundromat with wet boots and a frightened heart. She knew that God did not discard people when their lives looked crumpled and stained. He folded them gently. He warmed them by degrees. He sent someone to whisper prayer over the cold places. He called them by names deeper than failure. He placed light in rooms where darkness had grown confident. And sometimes, on the other side of a returned wallet, a repaired radiator, a father's apology, a daughter's open door, and a newborn's cry, he let a woman look back at the hardest night of her life and see not only what she almost did, not only what she lacked, not only what she feared, but the quiet beginning of provision already moving toward her. Megan kissed Grace's forehead. "Thank you," she whispered. The laundromat lights hummed above them, bright and ordinary, and for the first time in a long time, Megan did not hear emptiness in the sound. She heard a prayer still unfolding.